Hey, welcome back to the Springs Radio Real Estate Show. I'm Cheryl Garlock with Colorado Front Range Properties, your host. You know, just a minute ago, we were just talking about the rising interest rates and the cost of mortgage money, that sort of thing there. I want to let you guys know that I specialize in bringing real estate and mortgage services together for you to your complete satisfaction and allow you to get the most in savings there. I want you to give me a call today and let me show you how I can go ahead and do that for you. So don't let these rising interest rates scare you, because there's really no reason to be scared of those whatsoever at all. We can still package an appropriate property for you, a home for you, with the right kind of mortgage and the right kind of mortgage rate. You just need some education and information, and I'm here to do that. Give me a buzz. I'm at 719-321-7600. Now, that said, let me tell you, part of what I do is help you get aligned with the right professionals that need to help you in the rest of your home experience, a home buying experience. And that would be including your insurance, your homeowner's insurance. And I can tell you, you need to make sure that you carefully select the right insurance company and the right insurance agent to make sure that you're packaging the best real estate deal for your protection there. As we've noted here, we've had a lot of problems with flooding, right, Martin?
We have, way too much.
Absolutely. And not just flooding, but of course fires as well. And so buying that property in the right location is really important. And you and I were just talking before the show started here about some of the, I would call it, limitations that insurance policies tend to offer. And we were talking about flood.
We're talking about the FEMA flood policy. So there's three standard types of flood policies. 95% of the flood policies out there are going to be insured through FEMA, whether or not you go through your standard insurance agent and he goes through his insurance company. Those are all reinsured by FEMA and abide by the FEMA, so the National Flood Insurance Program, bylaws and rules. You also have what's called excess flood, which happens when the house value or the commercial property value exceed the maximum threshold of FEMA, which is $250,000 for a resident. So if you own a very large house, you may have excess flood to cover it because you're by the creek or by a river, or coastal. Right, I mean, there's some big ones on the Missouri River, that kind of stuff. There's some big houses. The third one is there's some private flood companies out there. So there are 2, 3, 4, 5 companies who actually write flood insurance on their own paper, and they cover a lot more and tend to be a lot more expensive because they're providing larger coverage, and they're more restrictive. They're not forced to accept you where you're at. So they look at your house and they analyze it. So part of it, I brought in the brochure you and I were talking about. Yeah. Most people don't know about it, but FEMA has a brochure, and their number, should I give it out?
Yeah, go ahead.
800-427-4661.
Can you repeat that one more time?
800-427-4661. This is the July 2009 summary of coverage for flood. And the one we were talking about is the biggest problem with basements.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in a basement covered. The actual building is covered, but if you have contents in the basement, almost everything is not covered in there.
I have got to tell you, you know how many times we make our media rooms in the basement?
Media rooms, spare bedrooms. My master suite is in our basement.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just stunned by that, because I don't think most of us, myself included, and I've owned a home for a long time, I don't think most of us knew that.
No, and most people think basement, well, I have a walkout basement. It has the pictures on here, and it clearly illustrates that an elevated building on full story with foundation walls, which we would call our walkout basement, the walkout basement portion is considered a basement and has the limitations.
Mm-hmm. So let's be clear about this here too, because we're talking about being designated flood.
Correct.
Okay, and there are some definitions or parameters as to being designated.
It has to affect multiple structures. It has to be or a certain size, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So FEMA's put some more restrictions on to cover it. What we've seen in Manitou clearly defined it as a flood. Mm-hmm. But one of the important things to understand on this stuff, and I'm just reading it, so what is not covered in a basement area or a crawl space or walkout area is paneling, bookcases, window treatments, carpeting, carpets, floor coverings such as tile, drywall on anything below the main level, so any drywall around the entire place, because you're going to have to take it out because it's been flooded and it's going to have mold possible, so you take it all out. Walls and ceilings not made of drywall, so if you have wood walls, gone, and most personal property such as clothing, electronic equipment, kitchen supplies, and furniture. So that's basically everything.
That is really everything. Now, I've got to tell you something. In all the years that I've owned real estate, myself personally, no agent has ever really told me that. And I'm guessing that the reason why is because when you're shopping for insurance, and a lot of times people just call and they get their quick quote.
Sure.
And they just figured, well, I need a quote because I got to have insurance because the lender won't loan me money without insurance.
Right. Well, we give one of these out. I mean, the maximum coverage you can get on a home is $250,000 for the building, which is called Coverage A, and $100,000 for the contents. That's the most you can get through the FEMA plan, which is almost every company writes that insurance. So we can write, I mean, if you log into 6 or 7 different companies, it may have their logo and look to it, but it's all part of the FEMA plan.
Okay, great. But if you have a loss, let's say you have other water losses, like your pipes break or something, that's a different story.
Situation. So it has to be sudden and a sudden occurrence. The pipe freezes and blows up.
Right.
If over 20 years you've let the pipe drip 1 drop every hour and you have mold, that's a completely different problem. But if the pot bursts in your house and floods the basement, that's covered.
What about, so jewelry and guns and things like that?
No, not covered. So part of it, we actually called the carrier. All the inland marine policies, because those go on floaters, for most companies will clearly exclude flood. So if you have a safe, where a lot of people put safes in their basement, not covered. The guns in there aren't covered. And people always say, I don't want to insure my guns. Well, that's great, except that if water gets in there, hopefully you get in there quick enough to dry them out, or the safe didn't get taken.
Well, so if I'm not in a flood zone, and we know that that's probably not going to be likely the case, but then there's some sort of water damage to the basement, say from whatever. I mean, Mountain Shadows is a really good example here, because before they never were such victims of it, but now with the burn scar, they potentially could have
be
a
in
lot
a flood
of
area.
Yeah, it could be in a flood area there. I don't know if it's been rezoned as such, but
it takes time.
It takes time for FEMA to get around to do that kind of a thing there. But just getting flooding into the basement there, or something, a torrential rainfall, but it wasn't, say, designated or defined as a flood, you're basically SOL.
You are. What you have to do is call your insurance agent, look at your policy. There are different levels in policies. Different companies offer different coverages. So you really want to look at what company you have and how they define words such as flood.
Okay.
Right? I mean, you just need to make sure you've got the right, you make sure you've got, we make sure we cover that kind of stuff, especially if you put a lot of stuff in the basement.
Wow, so you really need to have this conversation with your agent about, or your agent should be bringing it to your attention, I would think.
Or have a conversation with me. I'm perfectly fine being their agent.
I bet you are.
That's how we'd like to do it.
I'm going to tell you, you go to springsradiorealestate.com, click on the guest tab there, and you're going to find Martin's contact information right there. Call me. 719-321-7600. I'll tell you how to get in touch with Martin directly. I even have a cell phone. We'll be right back.